The first thing I felt wasn't the pain. It was the cold, icy and unyielding, seeping from the tile floor into my skin, as if it had every right to take my warmth. My cheek throbbed where it pressed against the ground, and the coppery tang of blood clung to my tongue. Every shallow inhale sent sharp warnings through my ribs, like flares in the dark. My vision swam in and out of focus until the shape of polished leather shoes sharpened before me. Grayson Cole's shoes. He didn't speak. He didn't reach down. He simply looked at me, his jaw tight, then stepped over my legs like I was nothing more than an obstacle in his way. The door shut behind him with a casual click, the sound far too soft for the damage he'd left behind. The silence that followed was almost mocking. No footsteps returning. No frantic voice calling my name. My phone buzzed weakly beside me, its cracked screen flickering. I rolled just enough to see the message. 4 words glared back at me, "Stay away from us." Layla's words. My sister's. They didn't sting, they sliced. She hadn't asked if I was hurt. She hadn't even pretended to be confused. She'd made her choice. In that moment, I made mine. My trembling fingers typed a single word, "Done." No tears fell. Not yet. Something was shifting, quiet but seismic. I wasn't done loving my sister, but I was done begging her to love me back. It didn't start with Grayson's fist. It didn't even start with Lila's silence. It began years earlier, in 100 smaller moments that taught me my place in our family. I was the one who kept the peace, who learned early that my value lay in being easy to rely on, easy to overlook. While Lila was celebrated for simply existing, I was praised only when my accomplishments didn't overshadow hers. I brought home perfect grades without needing praise, packed my own snacks for family trips so mom wouldn't have to bother, and folded laundry at 14 because Lila's just not good at it. If she got a part-time job at the boutique in the mall, mom acted like she'd been crowned queen. That same week, I was promoted to lead UX designer for a national campaign. At dinner, mom smiled faintly and said, "That's great, honey, but remember, family and marriage matter more than work." Her words lodged in me like a stone. Over the years, I folded myself smaller, quieter, until the real me could barely breathe. I was the extra set of hands, the backup plan, the emergency contact. Layla was their son. I was the scaffolding they leaned on until they didn't need it. Lying on that cold tile the other night, I realized I'd been built to be forgotten. But I was finally ready to disappear on my own terms. Months before the night everything shattered, Lila and Grayson came to me in a quiet panic. They'd been denied a mortgage, Grayson's credit was wrecked from 2 failed business ventures, and Lila's freelancing income was too inconsistent to satisfy any lender. Their dream house was slipping through their fingers. "We just need your name on the paperwork," Lila said, her tone light, as if it were nothing. "You won't be responsible unless something goes wrong." Her words floated in the air, sweetened with sisterly familiarity, masking the hook beneath. Something always goes wrong. Still, I agreed. I told myself it was what family did. I sat with Grayson to comb through his credit report, teaching him how to dispute errors and negotiate settlements. I connected them with a mortgage advisor I trusted, smoothing over their rough edges. When the first payment was delayed, I even fronted the move-in deposit without a second thought, no contract, no repayment schedule, just faith. Every step felt like cement hardening around my ankles. I thought my generosity was pulling us closer, weaving trust between us. But in hindsight, it wasn't trust they valued, it was access. My signature wasn't a gesture of love to them, it was a resource, a tool, a lever to get what they wanted. I didn't realize it then, but by putting my name on that loan, I wasn't becoming part of their future. I was underwriting it, carrying a weight they'd never planned to share. It was a Saturday afternoon, and we were gathered in my kitchen, coffee mugs scattered across the counter, the wedding budget spread out between us. Lila was glowing as she described the floral arrangements, while Grayson flipped through the catering estimates with a furrowed brow. We can save a few thousand if we cut the catering staff from 6 to 2, he suggested, tapping the page. It's just serving food, it's not rocket science. I glanced at the guest list, which had doubled since the last time I'd seen it. Are you sure that's a good idea? Fewer staff could mean slower service, and guests might be left waiting. Sometimes cutting corners costs more later. My voice was gentle, but I saw Lila stiffen. Arya, we've got it under control, she said, her smile tightening. I nodded, letting it drop, but Grayson's eyes lingered on me. Something in my hesitation must have shown. His jaw twitched. You think just because you make more money, you get to judge everything we do? His voice had an edge now, sharp and hot. I shook my head, but the air between us had shifted. What had started as a simple discussion over staffing had turned into something heavier, an unspoken challenge. And beneath it, I felt the first real crack in whatever fragile piece remained. Grayson's eyes locked on mine, his voice rising. You've always thought you're better than us, haven't you? The words were spat more than spoken, each syllable laced with something ugly. I instinctively stepped back, the edge of the kitchen island pressing into my spine. I glanced at Lila, expecting her to step in, to calm him, to remind him this wasn't worth it. But she didn't move. She just stood there, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Grayson's palm slammed onto the countertop with a crack that made my heart leap. Before I could speak, he shoved me hard. The edge of the counter dug into my ribs, stealing the air from my lungs. My hands flew out to steady myself, but he was already closing the distance. The punch came fast, a closed fist connecting squarely with my mouth. Pain exploded, white-hot, as the metallic taste of blood bloomed across my tongue. My vision tilted, the room spinning until the floor rushed up to meet me. I lay there, stunned, the cold tile biting into my cheek. Lila's shoes appeared in my peripheral vision. She didn't cry out. She didn't run to me. She simply watched, her face set, as though she were weighing something in her mind. Then they turned and walked out together, the door clicking shut behind them. In the silence that followed, I didn't reach for pity. I reached for clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't heat of the moment. It was a choice, one they had both made. By morning, every movement felt like glass grinding beneath my skin. My lip was swollen, my ribs ached with every breath, but my mind was sharper, clearer than it had been in years. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, the glow of the screen casting pale light over the room. The mortgage file sat at the top of my inbox, $820,000 approved, my name stamped across every page. Liability breakdown. Repayment schedule. It was more than ink, it was a chain linking me to them, binding me to a future I no longer wanted any part of. I clicked into the bank's portal and began the revocation process. Warnings flashed in red, this action may cancel the loan agreement. Proceed only if you understand the consequences. I clicked yes. Security questions followed, my first pet's name, my mother's maiden name. The irony was almost bitterly funny. Finally, a signature line appeared at the bottom of the screen. One digital stroke, and I could take back everything they'd assumed I'd keep giving. An hour later, my phone rang. Grayson's voice came through, high and panicked, a far cry from the man who'd stood smug in my kitchen. What the hell did you do? The bank said the guarantor pulled out, you killed this deal. I let the silence stretch before answering, my voice calm. I did exactly what Lila asked. I'm staying away. And then I hung up. By mid-afternoon, the pounding started, not knocking, but fists hammering against my front door in a rhythm that rattled the hinges. Through the peephole, I saw Lila pacing like a caged animal, her eyes wide, her hair wild from the wind. Arya, open this door right now, she screamed, her voice cracking. Behind her, Grayson tried to temper the scene, his tone falsely reasonable. Just talk to us. Think of Mom. Think of everything we've been through. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I stood there, inches from them, my heartbeat steady, watching their performance unravel. They weren't here for understanding, they were here for control. When the noise finally faded and their footsteps retreated down the hall, I locked the deadbolt and turned back to my desk. My laptop was still open. I created a new folder on my desktop and titled it simply, Court Evidence. One by one, I dropped in the photos I'd taken that morning, my split lip, the bruise blossoming across my ribs, the timestamp on each file. I added a screenshot of Lila's text and the withdrawal confirmation from the bank. I wasn't building this out of revenge. I was building it because I knew the truth could be twisted, suffocated under guilt and family ties. And this time, I refused to be voiceless. The next morning, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I let it ring twice before answering. "Arya, what is going on?" Her voice was tight, like she'd already chosen her side. "Lila told me you pulled your name from the loan. Are you really willing to ruin your sister's future over a disagreement?" A disagreement. That's what she called it. I wanted to ask if she knew about the bruises, about the fist, about how her eldest daughter had stood and watched, but I already knew her answer. "You've always been so dramatic," she went on. "You push people away, then act like the victim. I raised 2 daughters, and I won't let one tear the other down out of spite." I hung up without another word. Not long after, Aunt Valerie called. "Your mother told me everything," she said, skipping any greeting. "Your sister's under a lot of stress, the wedding, the house, it's a lot. You should be supporting her, not punishing her." Their voices blended in my head, harmonizing in the same old chorus, "Keep the peace, make it easier for everyone else, swallow your own pain." But this time, I wasn't singing along. The envelope arrived on a Thursday, thick, official, stamped with courthouse ink. My name in bold type above the words "Temporary Restraining Order." I tore it open, skimming the pages once, then again, my pulse pounding. According to Lila's sworn statement, I was unstable, obsessed, and had violently confronted her out of jealousy. She called me dangerous. A threat. The precision of the lie took my breath away. This wasn't just an attempt to wound me, it was an attempt to rewrite the story entirely, to cast me as the monster in the very scene I had bled in. For a moment, fear tried to creep in. But it didn't stay. I had documentation. I had dates, timestamps, images, and witnesses. And I had Elena Rhodes. When I called her, she didn't waste time with sympathy. "They're trying to flip the script," she said. "We'll bring the truth into the light." Her calm steadied me. I slid the restraining order into my growing folder of evidence. Every accusation they made would be met with proof. Every attempt to silence me would only sharpen my voice. If they wanted a legal fight, I was ready to walk into that courtroom with the weight of the truth on my side. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, but every seat was filled. Lila sat at the petitioner's table, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. Grayson was beside her, his posture stiff, lips pressed into a thin line. My mother sat 2 rows back, staring straight ahead, refusing to meet my gaze. Their attorney began with practiced sympathy, painting me as a bitter, vindictive sister out to destroy a happy couple's future. Every fact was twisted into suspicion, every silence into guilt. When it was our turn, Elena didn't posture. She started with the photos, high resolution, time-stamped, the swelling in my lip, the deep purple bruising along my ribs. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Next came the medical report, blunt force trauma, internal bruising, injuries consistent with physical assault. And then, the footage. Grainy, but clear enough, Lila lunging, me shoved backward, Grayson stepping over my body without a glance. The silence that followed was thick, almost oppressive. The judge's eyes moved from the screen to Lila, her voice sharp. "Petition denied. And consider yourself fortunate Miss Bennett isn't pressing charges." I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I gathered my papers, nodded to Elena, and walked toward the exit. Each step felt deliberate, unshaken, like I was reclaiming ground that had been taken from me piece by piece. Sophie was waiting just outside the door. Without a word, she fell into step beside me, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm. Lila was waiting just outside the courthouse steps, her shoulders tense, mascara smudged in a way that looked almost staged. "Arya," she called, her voice low and shaking, "can we just talk?" I didn't slow my pace. She hurried to match my steps, her hand brushing my arm. I pulled away. "I didn't know it would get this far," she said quickly. Grayson said, the sentence collapsed in her throat. I turned to face her fully. "You stood there," I said, my voice steady. "You let him hit me. You watched me on the floor and said nothing. And then you called me dangerous." Her lips parted, but nothing came out. There was no argument left, no justification that could bridge the chasm between us. "You are no longer my sister," I told her. The words weren't loud, but they landed heavy. Something in her eyes faltered, as if she finally realized there was no way back. I walked away without looking back. Sophie was waiting by the car. She didn't ask what happened, she didn't need to. She just drove. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the apartment wrapped in the kind of silence that didn't feel empty, it felt clean. My laptop was open, but I wasn't adding to the evidence folder anymore. That part was finished. Instead, I created a new folder and named it Peace. I didn't move the voicemails, the screenshots, or the photos into it. This wasn't for proof. This was for the things I wanted to protect, my time, my boundaries, my future. I deleted Lila's number. Then Grayson's. Then my mother's and Aunt Valerie's. My phone felt lighter with each erasure, as if I was cutting away the invisible cords that had been pulling me back for years. For the first time in so long, I wasn't bracing for the next call, the next crisis, the next demand dressed up as love. I leaned back in my chair, let the quiet settle deep in my bones, and realized I wasn't just staying away from them. I was staying close to myself. A year slipped by like a season I'd finally stopped resisting. I poured myself into my work, not to forget, but to remember what I was capable of when I wasn't carrying someone else's weight. By summer, I had led a major product launch that made headlines in my industry. By fall, I was promoted to department head. I no longer apologized for knowing what I was doing. Tuesday nights became sacred. That was when I took a ceramics class at the community center. At first, my hands were clumsy, the clay collapsing under my touch. But week by week, I learned the rhythm of it, pressure, patience, and letting go of perfection. The clay didn't care about my past, it simply responded to how I shaped it. By November, my apartment was warm with the smell of roasted turkey and laughter. I hosted my first Friendsgiving. Sophie brought wine, Nate roasted a turkey that was strangely perfect despite his nervous fussing. We sat on mismatched chairs, passing dishes and trading stories until our sides hurt from laughing. It was everything my family dinners weren't: messy, loud, full of joy that didn't come with conditions. For the first time, I felt surrounded by people who wanted me there simply because I was me. One crisp winter morning, a plain envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable, Lila's looping script. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. That night, I stood over the recycling bin and tore it cleanly in half, then into quarters. There was no anger in the motion, only finality. Afterward, I stepped out onto my balcony. The air was sharp and fresh, carrying the faint scent of rain. In the corner sat the small cactus I'd bought the week after the court hearing. For months, it had been nothing but spines and stubborn green. But now, at the very top, a single pink flower had bloomed, delicate, defiant, and utterly alive. I crouched beside it, watering the soil slowly. The petals caught the fading sunlight, glowing like a tiny flag of victory. I used to think strength meant never cracking, never letting anything break you. But standing there, watching that bloom sway gently in the breeze, I understood something different. Strength is what grows in the cracks. It's choosing to plant yourself anyway, to reach for the light, even when the ground beneath you has been nothing but hard and cold. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. In the end, Aria's story is not just about betrayal, it's about reclamation. It reminds us that loyalty is not blind obedience, but a commitment to those who respect and protect us in return. True courage often means standing alone, choosing the harder path of separation over the false comfort of toxic familiarity. It means daring to confront lies, even when they are wrapped in the language of family, and insisting that the truth be seen, heard, and believed. Her journey shows that self-worth cannot be measured by how much we give to those who take without gratitude. By walking away, she did not abandon love, she abandoned the illusion that love can exist without mutual respect. The silence she embraced was not emptiness but space, a space to heal, to grow, and to rebuild a life on her own terms. We are taught that family is forever, but Aria's path teaches a more difficult truth: blood is not a guarantee of trust, and sometimes the most loving act you can do for yourself is to close the door and keep it shut. In the cracks left by pain, resilience can bloom like the cactus on her balcony, proof that beauty and strength often grow in the most unforgiving soil.